Hey guys, this is Alan, aka GameLark, and I'm here with a brand new Devil May Play episode. And just to be clear, this episode is following the discussion we had about games as full packages, but it is not a continuation to that. That episode will take place after this one.
Think of this as a sort of breaking news impromptu episode of the podcast. By the way, I'm Trip, if you all forgot.
Yes, that is a great way of looking at it. As most of you probably know, Nintendo just revealed their new console, the Nintendo Switch. You like
there
that?
we go.
You like that?
I get it. I get it. So we wanted to talk a bit about this, especially because Lark and I seem to have some differing opinions on at least our initial emotions that we got after watching this announcement and reading up on some of the details. So we think that might be an interesting little conversation to have.
Absolutely. So, first impressions, I would say I was surprised to see some of the games that were on there. I knew that, obviously Zelda is going to be ported to it, or I guess not ported, but it's going to be developed in parallel with a Wii U version. I was surprised to see Skyrim running, new Mario, and the thing that took me, that took me by surprise the most. I don't know if you noticed this, but the Mario Kart that they showed is definitely not Mario Kart 8. At least if it is, it's a massive overhaul, because if you notice, if you go back and watch the announcement video, there's two items at the top of the screen for the players, and that does not exist in Mario Kart 8. Plus, one of the players in that King Boo is not a playable character in Mario Kart 8. So we could either be looking at like a like a HD upgrade or something, or like a remake, but it also could be a brand new game, which would be pretty exciting. Other than the games, my first thought was this is exactly what the Wii U should have been. That was my first thought. This is what they were trying to do with the Wii U, but just didn't do it at all.
Right.
What about you? What were your first thoughts?
Well, I really didn't see anything to get impressed by. And I know that might seem silly, and I just want to point out right now that my friends all hate me right now because I've been killing all of their hype. I have been playing the devil's advocate, if you will, during this whole situation. And the reason why I'm not hyped yet, and I'm not saying that I'm really not trying to be cynical about this. I'm just trying to go in neutral for now. It's not that I'm trying to kill everybody's fun. It's not that I'm, trying to criticize something that we really don't know anything about yet. I refuse to get hyped for this for some simple reasons. What we saw does not solve any of the, how do I put it? What I saw doesn't address any of the things that I think the NX, as it was known, had to do to become a competitive console. Now, I wrote an article about this months and months and months ago, back when it was still called the NX. And I'm looking at it right now, and I had, at least for myself, 3 criteria for what would make this an improvement over the Wii U and what Nintendo had to do to become a competitive console again, to create a competitive console again. So that commercial that we saw didn't address any of those things. So the things that I saw were, my criteria were the console needs to be more powerful. The console needs to have third-party support, real third-party support. And I know that we saw some stuff there, but I have some problems with what we saw in the commercial, and I'll address that in a minute. And the other thing was they need to really hammer down and really use their IPs. And again, we saw we saw Zelda, we saw that new Mario Kart, we saw what looked like it was maybe a new Mario, and that's good, but again, it's not enough to get me excited until I learn more. So what you're probably thinking is...
You're a horrible person.
Well, yes, but what you're definitely probably thinking is, Trip, what are you talking about? There were a lot of third-party games shown on there, and then immediately after the commercial release, we got a whole list of third-party developers who were partnering for the Nintendo Switch. Well, see, here is where I have to kill everybody's fun. A similar thing happened during the Wii U's announcement, and throughout the Wii U's lifespan, we saw tons of well-known AAA developers saying that they were going to make a Wii U version of a particular game, only for that version to either never come out or be completely gimped and torn to shreds because the Wii U was so much weaker than the competition. Now, the other issue, the thing that really kind of makes my point here, is that almost immediately after the commercial was released, Bethesda admitted that they didn't even necessarily have concrete plans to port Skyrim to the Nintendo Switch. So everything we saw of Skyrim on the Nintendo Switch is not even official yet. The main thing that we were all looking at and freaking out about, by the way, I don't see why we were all freaking out about that. Oh, wow, the new Nintendo can run a 2011 game. I'm not sure why that was everyone was freaking out over that, but I'm just being mean at this point. But my point is that the third-party support thing, what they were saying means nothing to me yet, because we know that the industry lies about these things. We know that even when they're not lying, developers pull out. And until we know the power of the console, and I know people don't like to talk about power when it comes to consoles. They think it doesn't necessarily matter because, the industry is going to make their games for the weakest console regardless. But the main problem with that argument, which I used to believe in as well, was, once again, the Wii U. The Wii U was a mixture of the architecture and the fact that it was just flat out weaker compared to the other consoles that really gimped its third-party support. And the reason why I'm criticizing all of this, and the reason why I'm being so, I guess, hard on Nintendo, if you even can be hard on a multi-million-dollar corporation, is because I really like Nintendo. I think that Nintendo has the potential to create a great console. I think Nintendo is the only company on the market that really has a good argument for even making consoles at this point, because their consoles tend to be a bit gimmicky and kind of a good way or a bad way depending on who you ask. They have definitely the best first party IPs of any video game company, and games that you just will never be able to play on the PC ever without an emulator or what have you. So I definitely think that Nintendo has the resources to become the premier console in the current generation. And I would love for them to do that. But as it stands, I don't see anything that will bring the Switch up to the top and make it something that you're not getting after you buy your PS4, your Xbox One, to make it something that can actually compete with the PS4 and Xbox One. I don't see anything that can do that yet.
Wow, that's a lot. And I got a lot to say. I'm very excited. All right. So first of all, I want to address the word you use, gimmick, because I was thinking about this before we did this episode. Like, what is the difference between a gimmick and something that's actually useful? You remember, okay, so when the Wii U came out, we saw the gamepad, and everyone's like, well, this is going to change. This might change up gameplay. Think of the potential. We can have a Metroid Prime game. And then we never got it. We could have a Metroid Prime game where you could hold up the screen to be a visor. The simple fact is that thing was a gimmick because it did not enhance the game, most games at all, right? You had to look between two screens. That takes time. Yes, it's useful for inventory. Okay, so that's one use that second screen has. That's it. Okay, even with the Xbox 360, the Kinect, and then the Xbox One, where they really try to push motion controls. For most video games, motion controls and voice commands do not help the experience. In fact, a lot of times they detract from it, especially when you have asshole friends who go around saying Xbox off, right? It's not an enhancement. Now, here's where I think the Switch got it right and why I thought this is what the Wii U should have been. If the Wii U had not existed and this had been the follow-up to the Wii, I think Nintendo would not have suffered that slump that they did with the Wii U. And then here's why. As anyone knows that plays video games, Nintendo just dominates the handheld market. So what they said is, we're going to make a console that it's both portable and a home console. Okay. And then not only is it, what really impressed me, the point that I was like, this is something that I haven't quite seen yet, is the part where they set up the screen, like the portable console, detach the controllers, and now they're playing 2-player co-op. Now, granted, those controllers are tiny, and granted, that screen isn't that big, but the idea that you could just take that with you wherever you want to go, set it up, and play with someone else, I think that's pretty neat. Now, there's a whole lot of other specifics that we can't get into that we don't know, like battery life and whatnot. But the simple premise of having a home console and a portable console, to me, is pretty appealing. I can see the appeal in that.
Right. Sorry, keep going.
Oh, it's just the only other thing I wanted to, well, I've got a lot more to say, but the other thing I wanted to address that you specifically mentioned was their exclusive IPs. You are absolutely right about that. Nintendo, people now buy Nintendo consoles for their own IP, right? They don't really buy them at this point. If you're buying Nintendo consoles for third-party games, you're an idiot. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. Like you said, there's so few games that came out for the Wii U and for the Xbox One and for the PS4. So you go into it. Most people that are buying Nintendo consoles, I think at this point, understand I'm buying this for Nintendo IPs. And the difference between a PS4 sale and a I'm guessing Nintendo Switch when it comes out is when you buy a PS4, yes, there are some Sony exclusives, but the majority of the games you're going to play are probably multi-platform, including PC. So a lot of people have leveled this complaint that PS4s and Xbox Ones are basically like you said, gimped computers. I think that's what you said. But anyways,
I have definitely said that before, but I don't think I said it this time.
Well, anyways, they are essentially gimped computers. So what Nintendo is doing is like not only are they just saying, okay, their hardware approach is different. Yes, it's going to be a lot less powerful than the PS4 Neo or the Xbox One Scorpio. I'm sure. I doubt that it's going to have 4K compatibility. But to me, it seems like they're just like they've given up on trying to compete with the PC market. And here's where this plan is either going to work or not work. Okay. The appeal of having a portable console and a home console to me is pretty strong. That means that I don't have to keep buying, the next 3DS or whatever comes out, right? And sometimes when I go on the road, it would be nice to continue games that I've been playing at home without having to buy a whole new cartridge or something like that. But really what it's going to take is, one, it's going to take people actually thinking, other people think this is a good idea. And if other people think it's a good idea and start buying the consoles, then third-party publishers may actually develop exclusive IPs for the Switch. Because as you said, if it's not able to compete with the PS4 and the Xbox One, really, I mean, by the time the Switch comes out, I'm sure like within a couple years, there's going to be a successor to the PS4 and the Xbox One. So it's not going to win at the power game is my point. They're going to have to build an audience quickly to prove to third-party developers, okay, there's a market here, make some original games, because these other publishers, their goals, like Microsoft with the Xbox One, there have been maybe like, I don't know, I can't give a specific number, but how many original IPs that are exclusive to the Xbox have really come out? We have Gears of War 4, that's been the biggest one recently, but at this point they pretty much have just given up. Most of their exclusive IPs eventually got ported over to the PlayStation. So my point is, sure, there's a lot going against it, but the basic premise of being able to take a home console with you, portable and home, to me holds up. But you're right. There is a very, very big risk that just if there isn't third-party support, people are going to look at it as like a really underpowered console. Meaning they're just going to be like, well, this game can't even run. Like you said, you kind of made fun of it, but it's true. People were freaking out that it could play Skyrim, which came out in 2011. Just because we aren't used to seeing Nintendo games being able to, or Nintendo consoles being able to keep up with the current technology, essentially. Do you get my point? Right. It's like they are trying to play a completely different game, and it's either going to blow up in their face or it's going to work like the Wii did, because we all know the Wii did not have the computing power that the Xbox 360 and the PS3 did, but it still outsold them by far. Now, granted, a lot of the people that bought Wii were casual gamers. So I think that's what they need to get in for this, this run as well. They are going to have to rely on casual gamers again, people that look at that trailer or look at the console, and it is a little confusing, but maybe people that wouldn't normally buy video games might see that and say, well, that's kind of cool. I can buy this for my kid, and then I don't have to keep buying them handhelds or whatever, So I think that that's kind of their strategy again, and we'll see if it works, because clearly it did not for the Wii U.
I will say, first off, that the market was very different when the Wii came out, especially in relation to motion controls and people being interested in new ways of playing games. And also, like you said, it attracted a lot of people from the casual market who never played video games before to it. I think the market works a bit different now, but I mean, neither of us can really say in that regard. But here's the thing about the crux of your argument, which on the surface I agree with. If we lived in a perfect world, I know that sounds kind of weird to say, but if we lived in a perfect world, I would definitely love to be able to take my console wherever I can, play it mobile, wherever I want, no restrictions. The whole world is my oyster. But the problem is when you're making something like that mobile, you're definitely sacrificing power and capability. And when you sacrifice power, you're sacrificing third-party support. Now, you made a good point that Nintendo is basically making a gamble here, that if the console can get popular enough, then third parties people will look at it and start making games, start optimizing games for the Switch. Now, again, to your point, that's a really big gamble because, I mean, something similar kind of happened with the Wii U. I mean, not with the Wii U, with the PS Vita. And a lot of that was Sony's fault because Sony is Sony and they do weird crap like that. But it was a similar situation where everyone was waiting for the PS Vita to kick off before any developers really wanted to make games for it. But since no developers were making games for it, it never kicked off. And there was this vicious self-defeating circle that ended up killing the PS Vita. And something like that could definitely happen with the Switch under the same circumstances. But back to the issue of the mobility of the console, and this is something else that I learned. All of the processing power is in the tablet portion of the console. Now, that may have been self-explanatory, but it means that you're not really going to get any kind of power boost or performance boost when you dock it into the docking thing connected to your computer. So you're not necessarily, or your TV. So you're not necessarily going to have a graphics boost or a resolution boost or anything. Everything the console can do is within that tablet. And when you also compound that with the fact that if that thing has even anything remotely competent of a battery life, the battery is going to take up space in that tablet too. So unless this console has some sci-fi technology that we don't know about, there's really not a good chance that it's going to be competitive with the PS4 or the Xbox One in any capacity. And again, I know that people don't like to talk about power when it comes to consoles, but I feel like what happened with the Wii U is, at least in part, because a lot of things went wrong with the Wii U, but I think the Wii U is living proof that power does matter to an extent. When you can't put third-party games on a console because it's so much weaker than the others, then you run into a lot of problems. And see, I don't care that the Switch can run Skyrim, even if it can, because remember, we still don't know yet. I don't care about that. What I care about is that the Switch will be able to run the next Elder Scrolls game. I want the market to, I want the Nintendo Switch to be competitive in the market. I want people to look at the PS4, look at the Xbox One, look at the Switch, and actually have a competitive choice between that. I don't want people to be like, okay, I'll get the PS4 and then maybe I'll get the Switch after as like a secondary toy. No, I want people to be able to play the next Red Dead Redemption game on the Switch. I want people to be able to play the next Grand Theft Auto on the Switch. I want people to be able to play the next Mario and Zelda and Metroid game. You need to have both. There needs to be powerful third-party support just as much as there needs to be powerful first-party support. And so far, I don't really, if I don't see that from the Switch, and I don't yet, then I'm not going to get hyped, because all I'm seeing so far is what will likely be another weak console that can't compete and therefore won't be very successful.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think we just have, this is our fundamental difference of opinion here, which is that we're talking about games, right? We're talking about the game catalog. And I definitely don't believe that, given what we know about the technology, and like you said, unless they have some sci-fi technology going on, that tablet is not going to be able to keep up in a couple of years. Hell, it's probably not going to be able to keep up with the what is it, the Neo and the Xbox One Scorpio.
Yeah,
it's definitely not going to be able to.
Yeah.
It's definitely not going to be able to handle 4K. But my point is, I mean, it's like I get what you're saying, but at the same time, I still think that it all depends on how, if people get behind the idea, right? Get behind the idea so that third-party developers are not porting games to the Switch. They're actually making games for the Switch. There's the difference. So that's what I'm saying. And if you're the type of person where you want one console that can handle everything, where you can play the latest games and you get exclusives, you're going to go with the PS4, I guess. You're going to go with Sony. Because at this point...
I disagree with that though, or at least I want that to not be the case because I mean I have a PS4 and I like my PS4 and I play it whenever I can't, get a game running on my PC. But the PS4 and the Xbox One, kind of like what you said, I said, but I still agree with, is that they're in this weird position where they're in between a PC and a console at this point. And they're the worst of both worlds in a lot of ways. And what I want is for Nintendo to come in, remind everyone what a console is supposed to be, what a console can do, and become that all-in-one console, that real counterpart to the PC, instead of the PS4 and the Xbox One that are kind of teeter-tottering in between and delivering the worst of both worlds. I want a console where I can play Grand Theft Auto and then play a Mario game. I want to not need to settle for that weird in-between worst of both worlds that we're getting from the other consoles. I want an experience that can just be, what a console is supposed to be. Simple, no barrier to entry, pure fun. It can run anything. You don't need to worry about that crap. All you do is plug and play. That's what the Nintendo 64 did for me. That's what the GameCube did for a lot of people. And that's what the Wii did, kind of, sort of, but then, started going downhill from there. So I guess I'm being so critical because I know that Nintendo can do more than what I've seen so far. And I was really hoping that I would see them really up the ante here. And as much as I do like the idea of making your console mobile, if there's not going to be enough games on the console as a result of its mobility, then I'd rather just have a home console. Because again, like my main thing is I want people to be in a position where they could buy the Switch instead of their PS4, not definitely buy a PS4 or Xbox One, and then maybe as an afterthought, buy the Switch just because they have to play Breath of the Wild. You know what I mean?
I understand exactly what you're saying, but there's two problems with that. One, if Nintendo, there's really one problem with that. Nintendo is not going to do that. Their philosophy, at this point, they've proven that they're not trying to compete with, I don't think compete's the right word, but they're not trying to follow the same path that Sony and Microsoft are, with especially starting with the Wii and going into the Wii U, and now with the Switch. They always prioritize like hardware changes over software, meaning like they're not so concerned about being the most cutting edge console. They let Sony and Microsoft do that, and I get what you're saying. It would be nice if you could have like a Nintendo console that just didn't have quote unquote gimmicky controls, like kind of like the GameCube. I guess the GameCube was the last console that they did where they tried to compete with the other.
And it's not, I just want to make clear, it's not that I'm against, and maybe I shouldn't even be calling it gimmicky, because you made a really good point about the difference between a gimmick and something that's an actual, feature that we like. Maybe I shouldn't use the term gimmicky.
Well,
what I'm saying is, I'm not against the gimmicks. I just think that I'm concerned that with this current gimmick, quote unquote, the mobility, which again is something that I like in principle, we might be sacrificing some other stuff that I like.
And we absolutely are, though. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, and I also appreciate your point about the kind of reality check that Nintendo isn't trying to necessarily compete in the same way with PS4 and Xbox One. And I guess my response to that is, well, where has that gotten them? I'm not saying I want them to copy the PS4 and Xbox One, because I think that the PS4 and Xbox One are going in the wrong direction, trying to emulate the PC without any of the good stuff of the PC. That's kind of why I want Nintendo to come back and really give us a console that reminds us what consoles are supposed to be.
Well, that should be our next podcast then. What are consoles supposed to be? Because you've mentioned that a couple times.
Good idea.
Because I'm primarily a console gamer, and you're primarily a PC gamer from what I can tell.
Yeah.
So that would be a great conversation to have in the future. So I think we'll table that discussion for now. But we're at this impasse. Like, you have one perspective and I have this other one. And my point is, if if you create the system that people, if enough people buy into the idea, then the developers will might make exclusive games. That still wouldn't kind of solve your problem of you want a one-stop shop console where you can get all the titles you want to play for, one console. But well, go
But I
ahead.
will
Sorry.
say this because I appreciate your point. I really do. And I would hope that that would happen if the console does go in that direction. I would hope that that would happen. And this isn't necessarily Nintendo's fault, but I don't think the industry is daring enough. I mean, we talk about the bullshit in the game industry all the time on this show.
Sure.
And in light of everything we've talked about over these past few weeks, I don't think the market or the industry is daring enough to really follow through with that. To really, I can't see Take-Two or their subsidiaries Rockstar and whatever. I can't see Rockstar making an exclusive GTA game optimized for the Switch. I can't
Hmm.
see I can't see Bethesda making a spin-off Elder Scrolls game exclusive to the Switch. Even if the Switch has just rocket high sales when it launches. Because, I'm really hoping that at the very least they launch with a plethora of really strong first party games. Because that I really think will get this console off to a great start. If they really embrace, like, if they come up with the new Metroid Prime game,
Oh,
everyone's gonna buy the Switch. Are you fucking kidding me?
I've been
But
waiting.
I really don't. I don't see. Maybe it's just because I have no faith in the game industry. I don't have faith in these companies, in their integrity or their business acumen or their competence or anything. But I can't see, even if the Switch starts looking successful, them doing what you're hoping that they'll do. And I guess that's why, like, I can't, even though I appreciate that point, and if they do go in that direction, I really hope you're right. I can't really, move myself over to that mindset because I don't believe they're going to do the smart thing, which is what you say they should do, and what I agree they should do.
Yeah, and I mean, I think what really is going to make a difference is a strong. To wrap it up, my final point. I don't I don't want to keep dragging this out, but my point
Right.
is, this is my question to you, right? Say Nintendo did not have, say the Switch didn't have, the portability. Say it was just an up and up strong console with all their IPs. Is that what you're saying you would want? Because in that case, wouldn't they be in the same category as Sony and Microsoft, where they both just kind of have GIMP PCs essentially? Because they're not going to be able to create a system for $300 or $400 that's as fast as, say, even
Well,
$500 or $600 PC.
yeah, no. I understand what you're saying. And when I say that the PS4 and the Xbox One are gimped PCs, let me make clear what I mean. Because all consoles are, in one way or another, gimped PCs. They
Right,
always
right.
have been, in some way or another. I mean, they're getting closer to the architecture of a PC, but the basic idea has always been that. But what I'm saying is the PS4 and the Xbox One are losing the perks of being a console, which is ease of access, which is plug and play,
Mm,
which is convenient controls, which is, not having to deal with all of the extra busy work in the background, not having to deal with bugs or, glitchiness at nearly the same rate as a PC. They've lost that. So
mm.
that's what I mean when I say that they're gimped PCs. And that's what I mean when I say that Nintendo could take their place and remind us what a console could do. But to directly answer your question, would I rather the console nix the mobility thing, be a strong console that has the perks of a console, but is either competitive with or stronger than the PS4 and Xbox One? Yeah. That's exactly what I'm saying. And that's not me saying that I don't like the mobility, because I really do. Like, I would love to take my console on the go that easily. But if I had to choose between having a weaker console that, knowing the way the industry works, probably won't have much third party support, I would definitely give up that mobility in return for more power and more third party support and most likely a more successful console long term.
Mm.
But What do you guys think in the audience? That's what we should be asking.
Yeah, what do you all think? I do want to say one last thing. We mentioned that a strong lineup is absolutely essential, like launch lineup, and that's something that Wii U definitely did not have. But the one thing that as excited as I am for the Switch, I do want to say one thing that troubles me is the fact that if 4K becomes the new standard, much like how when the Wii started, HD was just getting popular, like HD TVs were just getting popular. By the time that Skyward Sword came out, it looked like dog shit. It looked so bad because you're used to playing, HD games, and then you play this game where it's just like, it looks like it's 10 years old. But it had a great art style. I'm just saying the actual graphics suffered. So my concern is if 4K takes off the way that HD did, that could be a problem for the Switch. That could be a significant issue where people now go between, 4K gaming and then come back to the Switch and be like, oh, this looks bad. And because as much as we all hate to admit it, graphics do matter. So that's my final thought. All of you, are you Team GameLark or Team Psychotrip? Make your choice now. Choose your allegiance.
We're at war.
What are your thoughts? Why do you think it's going to succeed? Do you think it's going to fail? We'd love to hear from you. But side with me. In the comments, guys. We'd love to hear from you if you side with me. That's.
I would love to hear from you if you side with me, and you can join my cult, and we will drink Kool-Aid together.
We're gonna drink beer. Anyways, thank you all for listening.
All right, you guys have a great time, and we will talk to you next time.
You like that?
That was great.